If you go for bounty runes, you're bad. Sorry. Obviously, there's more nuance to it than that, but if that information is new to you, then stick around because we are going to talk about the 5 most common support mistakes I see that are all easily fixed as soon as you know what you are doing wrong. Do not always go for the bounty rune. It just isn't worth your time. Although they are good to collect and over time they'll add up, any single particular bounty rune will not determine the game, but that's how a lot of you act, and you go to crazy risks to collect every single bounty rune as soon as they spawn, and you are just hurting your game so much when you are not willing to let go of a bounty rune. At the start of the game, it is good to try to collect them with your team, but that is the key part. Just get 2 runes safely, and that's fine. You're going into the lanes even. If you go 1 and 3, that's perfectly playable. The issue is if you take a lot of damage or even die, that really hurts a lane. So from Weaver's perspective, his team has set up a ward down here. He has 4 teammates down here. The Radiant team should just take this bounty rune and this bounty rune and then go to lanes and they'll be on even footing. Instead, Weaver, with no information whatsoever, is going to rush for the bounty rune. Turns out there's 3 heroes here. He's going to die. Now he collected the bounty. Oh, he didn't even get the bounty rune. Let's pretend he got the bounty rune. He got 200 gold for his team, but any particular hero only gets 40 gold. However, by giving up first blood, he gave 300 gold to Sniper, which is already more, and all that gold is consolidated into Sniper. So he's immediately finishing a small item that is going to help him win whatever lane he is going to, plus the assist gold to everyone else more than makes up for the bounty rune they might have lost. And it is more meaningful than whatever gold you got, but it's split up between all your teammates. The other side of that is when you do collect a bounty rune safely, and maybe something like this happens where the Weaver's dying, or maybe you didn't see anyone, your team took this rune and this rune, wow, lucky you guys got 3 runes, and then for whatever reason, you guys think, well, let me go see if the 4th rune is there, and you just walk up blindly into the enemy's half of the map. I'm not saying this doesn't work sometimes, it works a lot more than it should, but it does not work enough to make this ever worth the risk doing it consistently. Because what is the enemy team doing? If they weren't here, if they weren't here, if they weren't here, they're either all bad, in which case you don't need the bounty rune, you're about to win the game anyways because they're all horrible doing nothing, or they are all down here hoping to get first blood and they waited around here, they didn't get anything. Why are you walking up here? Sometimes you get lucky and you only run into 1 hero. If you run into multiple heroes, you're probably going to die or at least lose all your health as you show up to the lane for the hope of 40 gold, which will not pay for a salve that you need to get all your health back that you lost because you blindly walked into the enemy's half of the map. Just don't do it. Take the bounty rune safely and just go to the lane without hurting yourself. The next bounty rune is going to spawn at the 3-minute mark, which is the same time the Healing Lotus is going to spawn, and you should be prioritizing this every single time because in the current meta, playing the lane is a lot more important. Fighting enemy heroes, going for last hits, denies, pulls, whatever. The Healing Lotus is right here. So you get to do this, grab the Healing Lotus, and if it helps you, comparing it to the Mango or the Fairy Fire, the Healing Lotus is worth about 175 gold, which is very similar to the 200 gold of the Bounty Rune, but is going to be split up between everyone, remember? So you're only going to get 40 gold. So 40 gold on Oracle versus 175 gold on Marcy. If they get into a fight, who sounds like they're going to be in a better spot? Another way to frame it, if it helps, is thinking of the Healing Lotus as an extra ability that you get in the early game. Because at this point, you're all level like 2, level 3. The heal you get from a Healing Lotus, 125 health and mana, is like having a level 1 or 2 healing ability in the lane, like Oracle's heal, Enchantress's heal, or Chakra Magic from Caudle gives 150 mana at level 2, right? You now just have the Healing Lotus plus your 2 or 3 other abilities, so it's like you just gained 1 extra level over the enemy heroes, and you can immediately look to fight. Like imagine these heroes all fighting right now, but there's an extra 125 health on Marcy, including mana if she needs another spell. It just sounds better, right? You're going to get a kill. That's going to lead to more CS because they're missing the creeps. So you build a further advantage. You can get that next kill. It all snowballs. If you choose to go for the Bounty Rune instead, or what these heroes do is they fight over the camps, also not worth it. Each of these camps worth less than the Healing Lotus. A full creep wave, if you denied it, worse than the Healing Lotus. You come over for the Bounty Rune, technically 200 gold, right? So worth more than the Healing Lotus, except in practice, I really don't think so. It's also just in an awkward part of the map. What are you going to do here at the 3-minute mark? You left the lane at like 2:45. You're going to get back to the lane at 3:15. So you just left for 30 seconds. So instead of Marcy fighting this Oracle right here, if Oracle is blocking camps or going for the bounty rune, if Marcy and Enchantress just fight PL, that's way better. You're going to kill the PL. You're going to zone him off of all the creeps. That is going to hurt his game a lot, and he's going to tilt out. He's like, what is my support doing? They're being useless. He's going to get angry. That's way better for you guys than going for the bounty rune, and then you're going to gank mid when you're level 2? Is that what you're doing? Are you placing a deep ward at 3 minutes? You're going to roam to the... There's nothing over here. Now, maybe you come really early and you stack as you get the 3-minute bounty rune. Might be okay if you already got kills in the lane, you already know your carry is safe, and they're going to farm stacks early. Maybe, but how many games do you feel that secure that, oh, we've won the lane already, I have the time to do this at 2 minutes? Very few situations. Most cases, you should just stay in the lane and play it out. Especially because any mid who knows what they're doing will come get the bounty rune themselves if they have the bottle and they need the refill. So when you take the bounty rune, sure, you're securing the 200 gold, but you're denying 2 bottle charges from your own mid laner, which could be worth somewhere between 100 to 200 gold, depending what you want to compare it to. So really just not a great play to go for the bounty rune at the 3-minute mark. Now, if nothing happens, you play the lane, you get kills, and now you got time, now you want to come for the 4-minute water rune, or oh, you got some free time, you want to go stack, now it's okay to come over here, and guess what? The bounty rune is still going to be here, and you can get it. Well, Zach, what if the enemies come and take the bounty rune? Good. I want them to leave the lane to go get the bounty runes. You fight whoever's left alone in the lane. That is the better play. If you buy a Clarity with your starting gold, I'm willing to bet that you do not know how to lane correctly. If you think a level 1 fight might break out at the runes, you're going to use a ton of mana, buy a Clarity after that happens. Because if your Clarity is bought at the 0-minute mark, it will make it to the laning stage at the 30 seconds before the first creep wave starts, and then you'll have it then. A lot of cases, something like this happens where a fight doesn't break out and suddenly a fraction of your starting gold is just doing nothing for you. And this is a big waste. To put it into perspective, like later on in the game, if you had a Glimmer Cape, Force Staff, Arcane Boots, like all those items, and then you just backpacked an urn, you'd be like, why are you doing that? That's a huge waste of gold. That's what this Clarity is. It doesn't do anything for you until you activate it, and once you activate it, you have to leave the lane for 25 seconds, otherwise it might get canceled, and you're not going to get the value out of your Clarity. And I just told you guys, walking to the bounty rune for 200 gold and then walking back is not worth it. Same thing with the Clarity. We want to be in the lane as much as possible at the start of the game, and the Clarity is not the play. It ends up being 4 minutes into the game when Rubik finally needs this Clarity. That amount of time might vary, but I promise you guys, it's just not worth it. Once you see your mana starting to get low, buy the Clarity at that time. Do not buy it preemptively. The most common reason to think you need a Clarity at the start of the game is overusing spells. So here is a professional player in a pub game playing Skywrath Mage, who's the classic example of this. So many of you guys in pubs just spam W, spam Q for harass, and don't do anything else. But instead, look at him. He bought a ton of stat items, and he's just going to right-click all the time in the laning stage. This is why he won't need a ton of mana. First, he's getting some from the stats, but 2, a lot of his laning is from right-clicks, and he will use spells occasionally to help him right-click more. And as his mana gets low, if he needs to, he will buy a Clarity at that time, and if that never happens, then he won't spend his money on a Clarity. These starting stats will add up over the course of the laning stage, either keeping you alive in an early bounty rune fight, or the extra damage, like 2 damage doesn't sound like a lot until you think about how much you should be right-clicking the enemy heroes, the creeps, last hitting. It will add up to hundreds of damage throughout the laning stage when you buy it. Lazy warding is where you are 90% of the way to a good play, and then the last 10% just screws over everything you are trying to do, either because you don't know or because you're being a little bit lazy. Take, for example, you get a kill, you want to come place a deep ward in this area. I think that sounds fantastic. You drop it right in the middle. This is garbage. This is going to lose to good and bad support players, and we don't want that. When you put your sentry or your observer in the middle, bad support players who think, oh, I got to check this area for vision, they're going to drop their sentry right in the middle, and they're going to find your stuff. And we don't want to lose to bad support players. So as a good support player, you need to come and put your observers at the edges of areas. Now, this vision may be a little bit worse than placing it in the middle, but it's far more likely to survive, and it'll still give you a good idea of what's going on in here. You'll see people crossing between the camps, and maybe you can't see them farming like right here, but that's okay. You know they're in the area. That's the important part. As a good support player, you want to now put your sentries not in the middle, but at the edges of areas to catch these types of observers. So we might place our sentry a little lower, but you'll see that this sentry now does not cover the top edge. That is just how warding works. You will very rarely cover 100% of an area. You just take your best guess. And maybe you think it's top, so you put your observer or your sentry a little higher, and then you miss the bottom ledge. That is just good supporting. You do not 100% cover areas in most cases. Now, sometimes you do, like you put this one to cover the top, and then you put another sentry down here to cover like this bottom ledge and this area. Sometimes you do things like that. But in general, you will only commit one sentry to check a given area. When you put your observer in the mid lane, you lose to bad supports and good supports. When you put it at the edge, you beat the bad supports, and even against the good support players, you still give yourself essentially a 50-50 that your observer is going to survive. And if you lose it, that sucks. If you win, then fantastic, but those are your best odds. If you have an ability that can check high ground, you should pretty much never put your sentries on cliffs. This will get bad support players, but against the good support players who are using the edge spots like we talk about, you lose to them. So put your sentries on the low ground, somewhere here, depends on the spot, but you'll check the cliff with the edge of your sentry and then give yourself a chance at catching observers versus those good support players who are putting them away from the cliffs. The Guardian ward goes around this area on the dire side. It's around this area, like there you go. Just don't use it. Long story short, do not put observers here at the start of the game and throughout the laning stage. After the laning stage, maybe. You can consider it then. The thing is, it's great vision, I get it. It gets killed so often, it is just not worth putting it here. And it's not even by good support players clicking you, checking your observers, figuring out where you place it. It's random chance because of these camps. When you block and unblock these camps, you will accidentally get observers in this area without knowing anything. It's just not worth putting them, especially if you have fought over these camps. Then definitely don't put any observers in this area. You are just asking for them to be instantly killed by the enemy, who might also have their own sentries in the area looking for these kind of Guardian ward. You guys have developed a meta around placing observers here, so then you guys put sentries to check this area. This spot's not even good, so sidestep it. Don't put observers in this area, and the enemies will waste their sentries looking for it, and you will have your observer somewhere else. When you put it here, it's just gonna die. You're not gonna have any vision anyway. Stop doing it. When you're placing wards, always put a sentry down first. It'll always work out better for you. She puts the observer, she wants it here. That's fine in general, but what if the enemy has an observer here? What if they have a sentry here? Well, then I don't want to put an observer here because they're gonna see me placing this observer, but she has no idea, even though she now plans to check the area with a sentry. Put the sentry first, see if they have anything here, take a quick look around, make sure there's nothing else in the area, and once you know they have no wards down, then you can consider placing your observer down. If you put the observer first and then you put the sentry, you can't pick the observer back up and put it somewhere else, so always place your sentries first. I hate to say this, but if you've done this recently, you are required to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I don't make the rules, it is what it is. If you have a friend who's done this, you gotta share with them. I don't make the rules. It's just how it is. People are creatures of habit. They constantly ward and deward the same areas of the map. So as soon as you lose an observer in a given area, you should never put another observer there again for the rest of the game unless you need to. Take Pudge, for example, putting his observer first, even though he's close to the base, he should have a courier out here. From Marcy's perspective, she was checking this cliff earlier. She didn't find anything. Her sentry being killed here now lets her know the enemy team checks this cliff. I should not put another observer here again. Placing a sentry to deward the area is fine because from your perspective, when your sentry is killed on this cliff, you don't know if the enemy put a sentry on here, put a sentry on the low ground and used a courier to check, or put an observer on there and maybe put a sentry on there, or maybe the sentry's on the low ground. You don't know. So it's okay for you as Marcy to put another sentry here to see if the enemy put observers, but she should not put another observer here. Guess what Pudge is gonna do? He's gonna come back, use another observer to check the same cliff. He is a cliff warder. So from Marcy's perspective, She can keep putting sentries here to keep checking for observers, but she cannot put another observer here. His last observer here died of old age, but you know what? He's gonna check it again anyways, just in case. As a big team fight is breaking out here, it is okay to put an observer on this cliff because it is a critical moment. We're getting late into the game, a lot of heroes are in the area, so if you win the fight, it is absolutely worth placing an observer, even if it's gonna die shortly after. But I know it's going to die shortly after. You know why? Because Pudge checks this cliff, and so unless I critically need it, I will never put an observer in this area. Now Pudge is trying to like bait something here. This doesn't work. If the enemy also has an observer sentry down, they see you baiting them. It kind of worked. They went anyways. He missed the hook, whatever, but it shouldn't really have worked. If you do end up placing these wards, you should kind of try to protect it like this team did, but you'll notice Pudge could have dewarded it if he wasn't baiting it. So again, when you place it for those team fights, you know it's not going to live long. If you need an observer to live long, guess what? You should place it out of this area over here. Now, whether this is a good or bad spot for the dyer doesn't matter. Once you recognize both teams keep putting sentries and observers in this area, just take your observer and move it a little bit out of the way, and the enemy will probably not find it. Unlike this cliff spot where I know Pudge is going to continue to deward for the entire game. As soon as the game loads in, you need to channel some Counter-Strike energy and just rush a site. Just go. I don't even care which ones you go. It could depend on the game. I often just go the exact same path for first bloods and blocking camps because it will just work more often than not in a pub game. People are often slow out of the fountain. This happens to be a party game, so more people are on the same page. But look at your pubs. I know you guys know what I'm talking about. Watch your fountain. People are very slow. So if you want to block a camp like this Shadow Demon does, just head straight to the camp right away. If you're placing an observer, sure, but just do it and the enemy is unlikely to see you. They will never check your items and see that you had a sentry and now it's gone. Where could it have gone? He had an observer, it's gone. Where is it? Right? Just rush here and place it. Sometimes you'll be killed for this from other people doing it, but I promise if we think of long-term averages, it'll work out more often than not. I do it all the time in Immortal, the highest bracket where people should be the most familiar with this, and I still beat people to the camps even as a slow hero because a lot of people are just slow. So if you just do it, it will typically work out. And if you are placing an observer, this is the reason it's good to do because it will give you vision for these first bloods that are so critical right now in the current meta. Well, I won't say critical, but they're really good. And you see off of that first blood, this team actually ends up picking up like 4 kills off a start. That's the greatest start possible. And you know why it worked? It's because Shadow Demon got here first and Pudge is showing up late to try to do the same thing. If you don't block the camps at night, then something like this happens a lot, where because supports commonly stand in this area or they place a Guardian ward, they will see the enemy support walking to this camp. And let's just ask ourselves, what do we think Tiny is doing here at 36 seconds? Is he blocking the camp with his body? It's not going to spawn for 25 seconds. Is he? There's nothing else. There's only one thing to do over at this camp at this time, and Dazzle immediately knows. So he's going to queue up a sentry, have it come out right away, or maybe he has a sentry. He's going to walk over here at 50 seconds to deward it to make sure the camp spawns at the 1 minute. You've given so much information to Dazzle. He knows exactly how to play. Does Tiny know that this camp is blocked? He doesn't, because Dazzle did this at the start of the game. So maybe at 1 minute, he was planning to pull it. Oh, it's blocked. I wasted my time walking over here. And now, oh, I just spent my money. I got to wait for 50 gold to get a sentry. Now I'm going to have it unblocked. Oh, it's already 4 minutes into the laning stage. Oh no, right? You hurt yourself so much. If you just rush out here and block, it will typically work in your favor. Now, sometimes you do something else at the start of the game and you can't make it up here. For example, Tiny actually went for a first blood bottom, and that's why he can't place this camp to block it in the nighttime. That's okay, but he needs to approach this differently. He should actually just come play the lane for the first few seconds, and around the 50-second mark, head over, body block this small camp, and at that point, he now has a choice. He can still put his sentry here to block it, and it's less obvious to Dazzle, especially if Dazzle wasn't clicking him, which in your pubs, right, that doesn't always happen. So now he doesn't know, did Tiny just body block? Did he also sentry block? Maybe as Tiny walks back to the lane, he goes, oh wait, my camp is blocked, and I saw Dazzle in the lane, so I know there's a sentry here. So now with the sentry you're still holding, you can unblock this camp. And at that point, you can choose to buy another sentry to block this, or prepare for Dazzle's next sentry, which he's gonna use to unblock this, right? You give yourself more even footing by changing that approach compared to this, which is that I placed my sentry, Dazzle knows, and I still don't know if this is blocked or unblocked, so I'm just gonna have to buy more sentries. Turns out Dazzle doesn't even care about the camps, and he's just playing the lane, and I've got all these sentries in my arms, and I wish I had more regen, right? You don't know, so it's a better approach to either rush out here at night when you have the bonus move speed and there's less vision, so you're less likely to be spotted by an enemy hero, just like standing here. They don't even see you walk this way to block their camp and get back out. Or if you know you have to do it in the daytime, change it up so that the timing lines up more with another reason you might be here. Maybe you're creep dragging, and as you creep drag, you block the camp. Or you're like, I'm sniping your couriers, haha, blocking the camp at the same time, right? Line it up so it's less obvious what you are doing. All of this comes back to our final mistake, which is being late to the lane. As much as you can help it, you want to be in the lane before the first creep wave even really meets, because there's a lot that's going to happen right there that can determine how the lane is going to go, and you want to be there right away to make sure it goes in your favor. In this game, there was a first blood attempt bottom, and now both supports are going to walk to the top lane, even though the teleport cooldown just came off. So if Marcy wanted to, she could teleport here. If Oracle wanted, they should teleport here. I'm saying they should, they're not going to, and let me show you what that's going to cost them. Oracle ended up checking this spot for the ward. There actually was a ward there that got them the first blood, but good on Marcy, she denied it. Now they're walking. Up here in the lane, the creeps meet now. Where are our supports? She's over here coming to block the small camp. Oracle is still walking. So the laning stage has begun and neither support is here. It could be an immediate 2v1 for either team if either of them had been willing to teleport, but it's not. So let's go from here. We could be harassing the enemy heroes already. Oh, look at this one, getting low. If Phantom Lancer doesn't feel comfortable coming up for denying, maybe a ranged support could be hitting this creep, getting it low so that the lane pushes this way to keep our equilibrium here, or going for the deny, that would be good. This one's getting low, so 2 creeps in contention. Now the range creeps are surrounded by melee creeps, so 4 creeps are being fought over right now. These cores cannot get every single one. That's where the supports come in, but the supports aren't even here yet. But now Marcy's about to get here after she blocked a small camp. She's gonna miss the rebound. Let's ignore that. This is a great time to fight though. It's 2v1. There were 3 creeps here. Multiple things are gonna happen. First, PL's gonna lose a lot of health. Even though the rebound missed, they use the enchant slow, they still get him down to half health. 1 creep walks into tower at that time, so creep equilibrium is already pushing out. He's also missing the chance for some last hits and denies. So the very first wave, right? Now Oracle's here. Now Oracle's leaving to go check the small camp and block this camp, right? She's immediately leaving the lane right away, even though the laning stage has begun. Core players tilt so easily. PL right now is pissed. He's like, why am I half dead and my Oracle hasn't even shown in the lane yet? I'm done. I'm over. I'm about to break my items. I'm pinging buyback. This happens so often. All Marcy had to be was in the lane and she's already tilted PL, let alone like there's actual advantages that have happened already, right? PL's half health, creep equilibrium already pushing into their side, which is really good for the off lane. And we're 20 seconds into the laning stage. So much has happened here. And a lot of pub players, their biggest weakness is how to play from behind. They don't know how to do it. So when you set them off on a bad start, it just snowballs from there. Now, off of that stuff, right now, Marcy's in the jungle. The way they get back into this is a 2v1 fight on Enchantress, and now she loses a bunch of health, and that shouldn't have really happened. This goes back. Playing the lane is so important right now in the current meta. So when the game starts, go do all this stuff, block the camps, and then go as a team for first bloods or secure the bounties, but don't take crazy risks. And then after all that's done, show up in the lane, use what regen you need to, and be in the lane, healthy, fight it out, get an advantage so that at 3 minutes you can pick up the Lotus Rune, and then go back to fighting out the lanes. All of it comes back to laning and then also warding. There's a whole warding variety pack, but so many of these mistakes apply in the first 3 minutes of the game, and if you can fix all that and set yourself up to have an advantage in the first 3 minutes, there is a higher chance you will snowball into a win. I know that's not set in stone. I have played my share of pubs. I know it doesn't guarantee you a win, but support players, your impact comes in the early game, and these are some of the most common mistakes I see that support players are just throwing away all their early impact. So fix this, and you will be a much better support player. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you check out the other videos on this channel if you want even more information on how to be a good support player. Bye.